Start.
I'm Anand Palaniswamy. You can stay with Anand. Louder? Okay. I'm a server engineer here at Zimbra. The way we're going to structure this talk is I'm going to do a very brief, like 2-3 minutes in the beginning, tell you what Zimbra is, what do we do, things like that. And Kevin Hendrickson is going to then give a demo of the product.
Roll the mouse. I think it's wheel mouse.
It's there, it's just really fast.
Roll wheel.
Is page down working?
It's screwed up because he put it in double screen mode. Oh, it wasn't focused there.
Clearly, I don't know how to use PowerPoint. We are an end-to-end email solution company. So we have a server and a client, and I'll go a little bit in detail about why we have both a little bit later. We are also a groupware product, which means group calendaring primarily. Our server runs on any Unix-like system, but for now we're doing builds only on Linux. It's highly portable, and what you get is you get a mail server with all the things that you would expect, and like an MTA in it, and some controls for spam and antivirus. And we also have a message store server in there, and we have the UI piece, like a little bit of server capabilities to serve up the client. The client is a web application. It's written with Ajax. How many of you here know what Ajax is? Okay. So very briefly, for the benefit of the people who haven't heard of Ajax, Ajax stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and it boils down to, it's a way for a JavaScript web page, in very simplistic terms, it's a way for a JavaScript web page to do an RPC back to a web server that it came from, get some data back, and regenerate the page that the user is currently viewing. So this doesn't mean when you click on something, you do not navigate to a new web page. You're still in the same page, but a server action has happened, and data has come back, and the page that you're looking at has updated. So our web client is written with Ajax technology. So when you install Zimbra, you go to our web server and you log into your mail client. We download this big JavaScript application, which then, to get your your folders and get your messages and let you compose mail, makes these HTTP calls to the server, but to you it looks like it's a desktop application. Examples of this are Google Maps and Gmail, things like that. In the process of writing our web client for collaboration, we have also ended up with an Ajax toolkit that a lot of people like, and in the future you're going to be hearing more about that. On the server side, we believe in open standards, open technology. Given any data should be accessible through an API, and so we publish SOAP APIs, which is very simplified SOAP for you to be able to do RPC to our server. So you can do all the server actions that you're able to do through our UI by going straight to the server and sending a SOAP message to the server. What's that?
Including administrative commands?
Including administrative commands. We are an open source company, and a lot of stuff a lot of technologies inside the Zimbra installation are open source components. We've chosen to pick what we think is the most appropriate technology today for the job, and we've also put it together very sensibly to scale. So when we use MySQL, we use it in a careful way so that in a really large install with hundreds of thousands of mailboxes, you will not be hit by any MySQL limits. We've partitioned the problem in a way that's amenable to these technologies. We also have a way, you'll see the easy integration with web services when Kevin does his demo, and I'll let him show you that feature. I would like to say it's a little presumptuous, but I would say that we are moving the finishing line on the end user experience for email. And at the end of the demo, you'll see if you agree with me. And we also have spent a lot of time on making the system easy to install, easy to administer, and we're also going to demo our administrative UI. And there I want to add that anything you can do in the administrative UI, which is also based on Ajax technology, you can also do all the same things with the command line. So I'm now going to have Kevin demo the Zimbra web client for collaboration.
So as Anand said, my name is Kevin Hendrickson. I'm also an engineer here. Lately I've been concentrating a lot on the external facing things that Zimbra is doing out in the community, so going to conferences. You see my name on the forums. I have a blog. So I'm going to shoot over to this guy, if I can pull it up here. First off, how many people have already played with Zimbra, knew of Zimbra before this talk? Downloaded, installed it? Okay, finally got it. So some of the things, if you've seen our demo before, I'm going to repeat for those of you that haven't seen it. There's also some new stuff that's coming in the next couple weeks that we're going to be releasing that I'll also cover here. So I'm going to sit down because I have a hard time driving the mouse when I'm standing. And the first thing, when I find my mouse, you'll see is it looks more or less like probably some of the inboxes you've seen before, maybe not. Folders. You've also got saved searches. You have tags. You have a little mini cal here for your calendar. And you have an inbox. One thing you'll notice, if you just hover over things, you can get information. So if the contact's already in your address book, it'll basically just pull that right out for you. You don't have to go and look it up. You'll also know there's this column here with the numbers in parentheses. These, similar to like Gmail, represent conversations. So if I click on one of these, pull it up, and you'll see that there's multiple messages all under the same subject heading. You can view them. Another thing that we have, which Anand alluded to earlier, was the integration with web services. So a couple things we've integrated with is Alexa for URL previews. So we can hover over a URL in an email, pop up a preview. We've also integrated with some of our own internal data. So you hover over the words next Friday, we pull up your calendar for next Friday. Again, contextual based on the headers in the email, the envelope data, or just a date. There's a whole bunch of different date formats that we support. And if you're in another country or you have some weird date format you'd like to add, it's pretty much editable on the fly. It's just a regular expression.
Can you scan over the next Friday again?
Sure.
So what is next Friday? So Friday means this week, and next Friday means next
Friday,
after.
so this is Wednesday. So this would be the Friday following,
Okay.
right. There's also, so this Friday, if you hovered over this Friday, it would mean the 7th in that case.
How many different date type keywords does it recognize?
Let me show you there. There's a test email called test dates, and I think it's got a bunch of them there. Maybe not. There's one that's even better somewhere.
Is the clicking configurable, so 1 click or 2 click?
No, not today.
Browser.
Maybe I can't find it. I'll show you on my laptop if you're really curious afterwards, but a whole bunch. So month, date, year, and every combination, 2-digit, 4-digit, colon separated, slash separated, October spelled out, October short, a lot of different things. So I go down a little farther, you see there's address highlighted. I hover over the address, pulls up Yahoo Maps.
Oh, that's cute.
We also have a Google Map integration. It's switchable. And again, these are just examples, right? So we've done a couple things that we thought were cool and easy, that are interesting, or we thought were interesting. But the bigger kind of question is, you know, go out to different enterprises and different companies. They're going to have things that are web services in their company that they want to integrate with. So an email address, one thing that's something our sales guys love. You right-click on an email address and you have some options. Search, click on the search builder. I'll show that later. An email, that's obvious. Add to contacts. One is just go to MySQL. So it basically parses the domain out of the email address and allows you to go there. So a lot of times you might get a mail from somebody you don't know or a company you've never seen before. You can right-click on it and quickly go to the web page rather than trying to copy and paste that email address there and go to the website. Here's one that's more of a kind of an enterprise-y feature. It's an example from an Oracle PO system we did. You hover over the PO, it pulls up a little bit of data about it. You right-click on it, you can approve and reject it contextually right in the mail. view the full PO if you'd like to. And the idea there is kind of to give an example of something that's really real for an enterprise that they want to do. Maybe a bug tracking system you want to integrate with. One of our engineers actually did that today with our Bugzilla. So now you hover over, bug space number, and it pulls out a summary of the bug data on the fly. Shipping systems. So we do recognize a FedEx number. If I click on this, it'll basically pop up the FedEx website and do the tracking. Currently we do FedEx and UPS, but again, it's a regular expression, trivial to go in and add your favorite shipping company's format. Again, another email, same thing. If the data is in my contact list, it pulls it up. Phone numbers. A couple of things you can do with a phone number: search, add the contacts, and call. So if I click on a phone number, it just makes a Skype call. So I'm not going to call John now because he'll probably get upset. But an example there that what we're going to be doing soon is we just got an asterisk systems in-house. So you guys heard of asterisk, the VoIP stuff? Yeah, so we're going to basically take that same integration and do it with asterisk. It's just a simple web services call. In this case, it's just a link to trigger Skype. But it's trivial for us to make that talk to a Cisco phone or an asterisk phone. All of the popular VoIP phones today have an API where you can send it your number, send it the number you're calling, and it triggers it off for you. So up top is our search bar. So this is pretty much like you would expect, I guess, if you're searching. So if I search for MySQL, you'll see the mail's MySQL. In the back end here, it's Lucene. So all the text is indexed with Lucene. If you do a search maybe on the headers, then that's going to MySQL. So there's some smarts in the query logic there that divide the query to the most optimal place to get an answer. And our query language is really flexible. And I can turn on always show search strings. This is like dummy or helper mode, depending on how you want to look at it. So you'll see that later when I click on maybe inbox, it shows you what the query is to get that back. So it's kind of a way to help you learn the query language if you don't know it. If I come down to maybe external domain, here it does not from example, which is the current domain. Flagged, whatever it is, flagged. So it just gives you a quick way to help learn the query language if you are new to the system. The system also supports drag and drop, so I can go and select one or do shift and select multiple or select two, and then you can drag them over, just like you would kind of expect in a new system, and drop on a tag, or you can drag a tag over to it, or you can drop it to a folder.
And these are what, IMAP folders?
So no, this is basically SOAP through our web client. So our web client's talking SOAP, XML to our backend, but those folders are available via IMAP. They are available via POP, Outlook integration. So there's, any client essentially can access our server. This in particular is actually doing XML and a format called JSON back to the server, back to our client. But if you made this change here and I was running Thunderbird or a regular IMAP client, you'd instantly see it because you get notifications back right down the IMAP pipe if it's assuming you're connected. So yes and no. Junk mail, you see that it basically goes to junk. Currently this just basically puts it in the junk folder. We have the option to basically put it all into a kind of a master junk folder, and the admin can then optionally run that through whatever. Spam Assassin is what we ship with, but you can add your own spam filtering if you want to configure something up to, if you have a different kind of spam appliance or something you're running. So one thing we do, not only, I showed you kind of message indexing where I did a search on MySQL and it was obvious it came back in the subject. So I'll do something that's a little less trivial. I do a search in IQ, and so you'll notice there's nothing in the subject that's got IQ in it. And I open the message, nothing in the message, and it's actually in the PDF file. So when it finally comes back here, it's kind of large. You'll see that we've actually indexed the entire PDF, and we support over 200 attachment types through a third-party indexing service, or some indexing code. And so you see IQ here in the mail, or in the PDF. Okay. Cool. So I saw you, just typing in searches from the search bar. Now I'm going to basically demo the search builder. And this is, again, something a little easier if you don't know our query language and you want to learn, what are all the options you can search on and what are the strings to get there. So again, I can just start with something simple, Roland. Then all the mails from Roland come up. And maybe I'll think that maybe I know it was from Roland, but then I want something that was an attachment. And I'm like, well, maybe it was a specific attachment. So I can say, okay, PDF, and then I'm back to that same PDF again. that it figured out. And so this is contextual based on your mailbox. So it's indexed your data. These are your attachments of mail that's in your mailbox. It's not global. It's not configurable. It's dynamic based on the data and mail you're getting. So maybe I want to say it's by date. Maybe I know that he sent it to me last year or this year. You can do searches like that. And again, if you see up here, it's building the query language because I'm in training mode. So you can kind of see what's going on. Another one is maybe I don't know who it was from, but I know what company it came from. So again, contextually based on your mailbox, goes in and pulls out all the domains, and I'll say, let me see everything from BEA. So anybody who's sent or received a mail from BEA is now pulled up in the query. And at any time you can do save. So I can save this as a search, and I just say BEA. And you go down into, close this little guy, search folders, and you see BEA. So now anytime I click on that, it's ran right away. External domain, these ones, new, unread, that's the pretty obvious one. So that's kind of what's going on in the mail client. Go into contacts. Let me find it with enough data here. You'll see that it's our CTO, CEO. Same thing, if you click on an email address or an email address or a phone number, you get the same kind of menus you get in the mail. So that same contextual kind of live data is also visible in contacts. And again, these are examples, these are obvious ones that we did, but if your company has something special or something you want to add to these menus, that's all more or less programmable or configurable. Do one more thing. So I showed you a date, but I didn't show what I can do. If I right click on a date, I can actually just add the appointment in line, so I can just say meeting. And I just created the meeting. So then,
all the time.
oh, did I spell it wrong again? Oh well. We don't have spell check in. We do have spell check in the client, but we don't have, so I can show you that. So you spell check, click on it, and it gives you options. But we don't have spell check in the save search or the new meeting request, in the subject at least. So I go into calendar, click on today. You can see my calendar. And so there's a couple different formats here. This is a declined meeting, tentative, new, meaning I haven't acted on it, accepted. Here's one here. I can just drag and drop. So everything's kind of what you see, what you get. Change the size. I can stash it up, down. And it sets. And so again, if there's like attendees attached to this, it would automatically send the notifications back out for you and update everybody else's calendar. We have the notion of shared calendar, so I can click on Jim and John and Ted and add all their meetings in. So I've added a bunch of meetings on one day here just to show kind of how busy that is. Now if I click on that day, it gets a little better because now I can see that, okay, this is, John, if I'm really sharp and this projector wasn't so bad with the colors, you could actually figure out whose was whose. So this was one way of looking at a meeting. We added another one that we thought was great for people that do a lot of meetings. Meeting scheduling. So it pops it into what we call schedule view. And this allows you to see everything side by side, and it's really quick to figure out where there's a gap in somebody's time. You hover over this, what we call a thermometer, and it actually shows you who's busy on that particular hour. And so if I go to a different one, it'll show who's busy. And if I come down here, maybe it'll only show that one person's busy. So this is great for people who have to schedule a lot of meetings, some kind of admin or a group leader.
Can you have private meetings?
Yes. You can set meetings that are not viewed, that are essentially local to yourself, right? So in this case, these Jim, John, and Ted have shared me their calendar. I can create another calendar and then just call it private. Oops, if I actually type in the book. Spell it right. So now I can have this one be private and maybe only share this, and create one that's public and share that with certain people.
So you have to actually create a separate calendar if you want.
Currently.
So but then if you click on the buttons, you can show all your calendars.
Together, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can even just go check all, right? Shows them all in one shot. So this here is 2005 Bulls. So I don't know if any of you guys are football fans. But you can see here that this is actually not a local calendar, but it's a remote calendar from an ICS file. So anybody maybe that's an Apple user, use iCal, have the notion of ICS files. So basically, ICS file is just somebody who's published a public calendar. iCal Share, and there's another one, iCal X. There are real common platforms out there where people just publish and share their calendars on basically any topic you could come up with. Community events, sporting events,
BayLISA.
pretty much. Okay, there you go, BayLISA. I could have used the BayLISA example. And so if I go into month view here and find out when these bowl games are, it's going to be tough to see.
What the hell is going on?
It's tough to see on this little screen, but basically you can see that the bowl games are all published here. So I can click, whoops, not that. There we go. And so you can see all the different bowl games that are basically loaded from this remote calendar. And again, if it's updated, you can just do a reload and the server will go and pull the next version. Eventually we'll add automatic polling, it's just not there today. So that's more or less what's going on in the web client. Is there any questions regarding that? Sure.
What's it like on low speed networks?
So we
What's
do a
the
lot of
latency
things to
out
optimize for that. One of our first kind of trials was over a VSAT, so a satellite, so pretty good bandwidth, but real high latency. And so one of the things we do is we actually compress or compact all the images into like 2 or 3 files. So you see a lot of images here, but they're all compressed into 2 or 3 downloads. So that you get, basically you get the download, it fetches it all, and then we use CSS to map them. Another thing we do is all the JavaScript is compressed. So what you're actually, all the actions I was doing now, you're simply sending a little bit of SOAP back and forth to the server. The actual UI itself is not being updated. That's, you've downloaded your chunk of JavaScript and that's sitting resident in the browser and running, and that's cached. So the next time I log in, I don't have to download that again. It's already there. So I've used it over a dial-up line. It's definitely slower than it is here, but it's usable.
What's the new stuff compared to what earlier there was a mention of? You may have seen a demo.
Yep.
We got some new stuff. What's the new stuff?
So the new stuff was all the calendar. So before we had just private calendar, and you had one folder that was calendar, and that was it. So now we've added the ability to have shared calendars, create multiple calendars, and also create calendars from remote ICS files or remote calendars.
What's
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So one thing I didn't show is if you create a folder, you can actually add in RSS or Atom feeds. So again, just another little kind of eye candy feature that you probably already got an RSS reader if you're a heavy blog reader, but if you want to drop one in there, we've got the ability to do that. Go ahead. Yeah.
What's the preferred browser and what's compatibility like?
So currently we support Firefox 1.0 Plus, and we support IE6. We're working on Safari, but we'll get there eventually. That's probably going to be the next one, and it'll work on Mac, Mac, Linux, whatever platform that Firefox runs on, essentially.
Any integration with encryption?
No, so currently we don't have like SMIME or anything like that, but it's definitely it's on the priority list. People have asked for it.
You do support HTTPS in the browser.
Yeah, so the browser's you can do SSL on the browser.
What's happening in the back end when you do HTTPS or even just HTTP? What's the
If you're in
connection?
SSL mode, all the communication between the servers and SSL as well.
So right now, like the connection to the server
Is
there with
HTTP.
HTTP?
Correct. So basically, the way JavaScript works is that you need to connect over the same protocol internally that you connect to get the client. It's a
You're
security
talking
feature.
about the SOAP stuff.
Yeah.
So is that all via that protocol as well?
Yeah, so we do something a little bit tricky there, or we think it's a little smart. We basically send SOAP down to the server, and the server returns a format called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. And we found that for large messages coming back, maybe like one of our VPs had 3,000 contacts. And when we logged in with 3,000 contacts, parsing all those XML nodes was very, very expensive. It would take minutes and essentially time out on IE. And even Firefox, it wouldn't be successful. But with JSON, there's no parsing. JavaScript just natively evaluates that and interprets it. It's just there, and you deal with it as an object right off the wire. And so all the data responses come back in JSON format.
So you guys have a choice here. We can either show you the architecture of the server that drives all this, or we can show you the administrative UI. Any preferences?
So admin UI,
Admin?
architecture.
You can do both.
All right,
Architecture.
you win.
Put me on the right slide.
I don't know. Look good.
Yeah, sure. Is that actually recorded to a hard disk?
Yeah.
Let's get the
Time do you get?
No, we got 10 hours.
So basically, just roll mouse back.
24 and 34. Ultra fine.
Ah, Yeah,
So,
we're okay.
In the beginning, I briefly alluded that we have our own server and we have our own client. I want to elaborate on that here. So, if you saw a lot of the features in the web client, like the extended search capabilities and all the web services integration, that is not, all that innovation is not possible without having our own server. So we couldn't do all that running on top of some IMAP server out of the box. That is why we have our own server. But our client is not the only client we would like to support. This server supports, like, as many clients as we can possibly make it support. So if you look at the overall picture, think of the MTA as where messages come in to the system, like your email, and it gets delivered into the main server. It's the Zimbra Collaboration Suite server. And all the different clients. So you've seen the first one, which is the Zimbra Ajax Collaboration UI. We have a MAPI provider for Outlook. So for all the Outlook users, they get all the features, the groupware features through Outlook after they install the Zimbra MAPI provider. We support like IMAP and POP, and we can export like ICS files for those who use Apple iCal. And we're also working on having connectivity for mobile, your phone's ActiveSync and BlackBerry Enterprise Server. So as many clients as we possibly can, we want to support. But some of the cool things you can, our rich features you get only with our UI. And another benefit of our UI is it's a thin client. So there is no desktop install, and it's like auto-updated, all the benefits of having a thin client. And the next slide, expands this box to tell you what's inside the ZCS server. So the ZCS server has 3 places where we store a user's data. So all mail metadata, like what are your folders, what messages are read, what's unread, what's flagged, the things that you see on the inbox listing, like the subject and the from. All the message metadata, mailbox metadata, is stored in MySQL. And all the actual messages that are stored as RFC822 files on the file system, 1 file per message. And then the third store is our search index, which is our Lucene index. We have a Zimbra journal, which is like an application journal, which helps us keep the 3 data stores consistent with each other. That's how we make sure, like, when we put a row in MySQL, we make sure, like, the file got written to the file system and things like that. All account information, not mailbox information, but account information, user preferences, who's an admin user, what features does a user have on their account? Are they allowed IMAP access? Are they allowed POP access? All that information is directory information and is stored in OpenLDAP. The Zimbra Collaboration Server itself is like an app that's hosted inside Tomcat. So the app is written in, the server is written in Java, and it lives inside Tomcat, and it uses JNDI to talk to OpenLDAP and JDBC to talk to MySQL. We also have a method for you to, like, if you already have an existing enterprise directory and you want mail authentication to occur against your enterprise directory and not this OpenLDAP, which stores like the Zimbra preferences, then we have a mechanism for you to configure external auth through LDAP. So we could, like, we can authenticate against Active Directory, for instance, and then there's like a template builder on the admin UI where you can say, my LDAP schema looks like this, and so when the user logs in as such, transform that into this LDAP query and authenticate them against the external LDAP server. Any questions about our architecture? So postfix is our MTA. It's not listed on this, it was in the earlier, but it's also part of the entire solution. So Kevin demo the admin. Oh, go ahead.
Do you have, or have you have any requests for working disconnected? Let's say that you're on airplane. Do you have?
Today, our answer for disconnected is to use Outlook. like as you saw here, right? It work in Outlook. Or you can use your Thunderbird in offline mode and all get all your data, but the thin client you cannot get offline today.
Can you say a word or two about about server scaling, about the hardware required?
Absolutely. I think there's a slide in here. So we've architected the system so that you can do a single node install where all the components we talked about, OpenLDAP and MySQL and the Tomcat server and Postfix, everything runs in one box, right? In a box like that, we see numbers like this, right? So where you can support about 1,300 users on a dual Optron with a pretty heavy profile. That's like more than 100,000 messages in the day, and the average message size is pretty high. But the server is architected so that you can have multiple mailbox stores, you can have LDAP replication, and you can have like a farm of postfix MTAs. So, and we also integrate with Red Hat Cluster Suite. So you can get easy management of like such a large distributed installation. And so a single node can do this, but you can just scale this out. It's like as many boxes as you want to add to the problem. And these are our numbers, initial numbers today. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So, where I am, we're looking at trying to cut our IT costs. And for once, management is not trying to do it by getting rid of sysadmins. Management is trying to figure out what we can lean off of Microsoft and move over to open source. And one of the things I'm wondering about is, could this be just used as a plugin to completely replace our Exchange server?
So yes and no, right? It depends how you guys use Exchange, right? If you're really heavy in public folders, we don't have public folders today. We're going to have it eventually. So, I mean, that's what we want to get, but it depends kind of how you use Exchange. If you use it for basic mail and shared calendar, which a majority of the enterprises we talk to do, then yes, it can replace Exchange.
Okay, now the other problem that we've got is we are part of the first publishing empire. And Houston and New York and a number of other places are still using Exchange. And there's some sort of handshaking that's going on between all the Exchange servers. So if I could bamboozle my CIO into ripping out Exchange and replacing it with Zimbra running on top of Linux, how would that affect our connectivity with the other sites that have not made the jump away from Exchange?
We definitely.
This is our master of Microsoft.
Let me introduce Sam, who's our Microsoft Master Exchange Guru.
Hello. So interoperability is a big thing for us. We're trying to figure out how we can coexist successfully. Currently, going one way where if you have Zimbra and Exchange server side by side, the Zimbra server you can have all the people in the gal that's in the Exchange exposed on the Zimbra server. You can schedule meetings with them. You can send mail to them. When you search in the gal, you'll find them. The other side is a little tricky. We're still working on that, but eventually, when it's all done, you'll be able to have a peaceful coexistence between the two and still have complete feature set that you're using.
Okay, sounds like that we're going to need to wait for a revision or two before we can do this.
Okay. In the back end of Exchange, there's a lot of connections going on for users across the board. So if this is a secured connection, VPN tunnel type situation, you have a lot of sessions. VPNs are limited by sessions, by number of users, obviously. So Exchange usually has from 6 to 8 connections per user, which is a problem. Well, how does that compare to?
So that's really the Outlook curse. The Exchange mapping provider implementation that Outlook uses opens, like you mentioned, 6 or more sessions back to the backend server, doing mapping over the wire. We have a single one connection back to the server that does SOAP, and you can do it over HTTP or HTTPS, which would be similar to what they call in Outlook 2003 RPC over HTTP. So you wouldn't even need a VPN, right? So over the internet, well, given your constraints, obviously.
Right.
but you can still set up a secure connection to the server, and there's one connection per client from our Outlook connector to our server.
And that's with an Outlook client.
Yes.
Awesome, thanks.
Do you guys have the delegation yet, or are you still working on that one?
Delegated admin.
Yeah, you have the
Oh,
administrators.
we're still working on delegated admin. But
So for like multi-domain, is that what you mean,
No, I mean, like,
or
I'm
the
a,
mailboxes?
I'm a secretary and I need to manage somebody
So that's,
else's.
so the calendar is definitely delegated, that's what I was showing there. So you can create other calendars, but you can also, I can create my calendar and share it with you. So that in that sense that you
You're
have control.
sharing it, but are you able to control?
read write.
Yeah,
we
read,
have
write.
a full thing.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you
so
can
you
delegate.
just have
it's
that-
an
so that's a
option.
new feature.
Yeah.
You can share it for viewing or for
Read right.
management. I can share it so you can see my calendar, or I can share it so that you can create appointments in my calendar.
So when you create an appointment, does it come out as you, or does it come out as the person who?
As the person who owns the calendar.
Excellent. That's
So
the right way to do
I manage the calendar for my CEO. I create a calendar appointment in his calendar and assign 5 people to it. They all get a notification from my CEO, even though I created it. It's like delegated calendar, like it should work. Right?
And is it tracked back if the CEO goes, I didn't create this and the administration?
Yeah, I mean the logs,
tell
you can
who-
tell who just
Okay.
logged in.
Cool, excellent.
If you have time, can we do the admin UI?
Quick.
The other speaker says it's fine.
All right,
so
I'll do it really
we're
quick then.
So
I'll-
long.
good. As long as people don't mind. We start throwing tomatoes, it's,
So just like the web client, it's Ajax based. You hit it the first time, it gives you the application. Everything else is just SOAP calls after that. The same SOAP interface is available if you want to go and write some tool. We have a command line interface, so there's a multitude of different ways you can administer the system. The admin UI, you're obviously going to probably use it for more smaller changes, and if you're going to do a bulk import of 100 users or 100,000 users, you'd run some command line tool. So if you just take a quick look around, you see accounts, aliases, distribution lists, class of service. A couple different class of services in here, and you can browse what's there.
Does everybody
Domains.
know what class of service is?
you should explain that.
Yeah, so class of service is like the kind of the properties of a group of users. And so in this case, the default would mean, if I go over here, you can see that they have all the features checked. I've also got a couple class of services in here that are just IMAP and POP. So you'll see that they only have IMAP and POP. It means they can't use the contacts, they can't use the calendar. This allows you to kind of distribute your user bases if you have like a light profile and then maybe a user profile that gets the full functionality. You can create additional domains. We currently don't have delegated administration of the domain, so a domain admin manages all the domains, but it's coming where you'll have the ability to delegate that out, so kind of an ISP type feature. Servers, if there was multiple servers installed in this cluster, you'd see them listed here. If you click on one, you can kind of see what's running on it, and then configure the different things that are running on it. Volumes is something that's pretty interesting. So we have native HSM. Does everyone know what HSM is, or the ability to basically, one of the common problems with Exchange is you want to be able to move mail off the disks on Exchange, move them out of those mailboxes and get them into some kind of archive system or some kind of worm drive for compliance. There's a lot of different reasons why you don't want the mail in your system, whether it's licensing costs or security or just the ability for the performance of Exchange suffers when mailboxes get really huge. So what this allows you to do is natively create different volumes for the mailboxes and set up policies that say that, okay, maybe all the mail in the first month goes on my really fast local SCSI drives, and then after a month we move that mail off to a slower set of cheap IDE drives in some big array somewhere. Or maybe if you're a financial services company, you say that I have, after a certain set of time, I put it on these special like worm drives which are write once, read only, or the mail is kind of locked down there for 7 years because there's might be some audit or some kind of lawyer wants to come in and take a look at them. So a lot of Exchange servers will be running with some kind of system sitting next to it doing archiving or some other kind of hierarchical storage management. Here we natively build that in, so you don't have to, you can kind of throw that piece out too if you so choose. Monitoring shows you kind of what's running where and is it happy or not. There's some statistics, and since we just installed this today, I don't think there's anything in there. Oh, maybe there is. not much. But so message count, volumes, spam and antivirus. So some real quick, simple reporting if you want to go in and pull out what's going on in your system. If I can, let's see, I don't know, create a distribution list or do something kind of interesting. So I can just do a search. You can find all the people and add whatever. Again, you can do your multi-select or control-click, add all.
Can you do message statistics? Like
In terms of?
Like how many messages from this domain per month type deal.
It's mailbox search.
That's currently not in the statistics page, but that's something that we.
Yeah, so Sam
the
running it.
statistics are driven off of we put all the messages into a database, and so there's a fair amount we can do there. We just don't there yet.
Yeah, so Sam also brought up another point. Since everything's stored in MySQL and in Lucene, we actually can do a higher level search across the entire organization or entire domain. So for a lot of compliance type things where you want to go and search through an entire kind of subset of people's mailboxes or across an entire domain searching for some kind of mail, we have the capability to do that eventually. I don't think it's not the admin UI today, but it's basically something we're heading down the road towards.
Are you are you married to Postfix, or is it possible to use SendMail?
So currently the install installs Postfix and configures it, and all the tools are set up to work that way. But in terms of being married to it, you can always run SendMail in front of it if you want to. We have a lot of trials going where they're still running their MTA with their setup of antivirus and spam stuff, and they want to run that, and then we just run behind it.
You run Postfix behind their SendMail, or you feed directly into your server from their SendMail?
We run behind ours. We run behind theirs.
Okay.
But again, it's open source, and if you want to just grab the server, our server talks LMTP. So basically, if you can route LMTP to a port, then theoretically you could make it work. And there's some people out there that have really, since it's open source, pulled it apart and done all kinds of cool things with it.
There are two reasons we use Postfix. Now, one of them is we can easily express the mail routing information in LDAP with Postfix. The Postfix LDAP tables lookup is very powerful. But on the other hand, you can get that data out of LDAP and give it to SendMail. So that's one reason that we use Postfix. The other reason we use Postfix seems to be the easiest way to integrate with a whole host of anti-spam, antivirus software out there by adding a content filter. Internally here, we run our Zimbra install actually relays all mail through another MTA, and all incoming mail from the external world comes through another MTA. And so that's where Kevin was talking about. That MTA could be SendMail, and it wouldn't matter. And a lot of enterprise installs, there seem to be a few MTAs before it gets to your Exchange server.
Right.
Big banks, there's a farm of Postfix outside in the DMZ before it gets to the Exchange MTA.
There we go.
So I don't want to steal your thunder. Do you guys have any? You guys want to field any questions from the audience, or?
I think, yeah, we're happy to. There's a bunch of, you can see everybody standing here, you can see Zimbra there, already sitting there. So if you have questions later, you want to come talk to us, feel free to.
So is it fair if MirrorPoint now takes it away?
Yeah, run.
Go for it, man.
So I think the real topic tonight is really about alternatives out there to Exchange, and different ways of doing email. Okay. So my name's Jeff Brainerd. I'm here from MirrorPoint. I also have Jeff Loke, 6-year plus veteran at MirrorPoint, works in an SE role at MirrorPoint, as well as one of our partners and customers, John Nickel, who does a lot of deployments, talking about experiences in the field. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do a really quick intro into who is MirrorPoint, our different offerings, and then I'm going to have Jeff talk about kind of our technical architecture with you guys, and you guys can ask questions. And then John's going to go through some of the deployments in the field. So again, the focus here is really about alternative email approaches, alternatives to Exchange, how to simplify people's lives out there, yet still provide similar levels of functionality for messaging and collaboration. So what makes us different at MirrorPoint is the appliance approach. And so the idea is that the same model that people like Cisco and Juniper and NetApp, and you can even say General Electric with things like toasters and washers, have taken of building purpose-built devices that work really well and are really reliable and fast and don't require a lot of maintenance. We're taking a MirrorPoint with the appliance approach for email and email security. So you guys all know this, appliances provide huge benefits in terms of being purpose-built. They're defined for one purpose, so they're fast, they're reliable, they're easy to deploy, easy to manage. Our boxes are very secure and hardened. We have customers like the U.S. Secret Service actually who use MirrorPoint appliances today, and people like RSA Security. It's very easy to do updates with our appliance. So there's not all these different software components like you're used to with Exchange and are common with other software models. So we actually provide a single image called MirrorPoint MOS that we push to customers to provide new functionality, new features. And it's very easy to do those upgrades in the field. And then the last thing is single vendor support. And these are general benefits of the appliance approach and what we've implemented at MirrorPoint for the email and email security area. The two key products we provide, and we started providing when we first shipped products back in 1998. One is a mail server alternative, an alternative to Exchange or SendMail or Sun, called the MirrorPoint Message Server. The other is a hygiene product or an SMTP gateway product that sits at the network DMZ and does mail routing, filtering for spam and viruses, outbound scanning of traffic, and that's called the RazorGate appliance. It was previously known as the MirrorPoint Message Director back in the late 90s. Some of the customers who use MirrorPoint appliances today, you often think everybody's using Exchange for email. There's a lot of people out there not using Exchange. We're not using things like SendMail. And so some customers you know up here, one locally here is Google. So all of Google's internal employees, or at least a vast majority, actually use MirrorPoint for email. Gmail is their own homegrown thing, but for email, the internal employees at Google use MirrorPoint. Some others are people like Broadcom locally, where half of their organization, most of the engineers and people on non-Windows desktops use MirrorPoint for email. And they also use us for security and routing for their environment. And then another one that's actually a big participant in BayLISA is BitPusher, who's actually deploying MirrorPoint's email server and RazorGate security appliance for some hosted services that they're going to be offering soon. So the way people use our different products is either at the edge with RazorGates to block spam and viruses, keep that junk off the network, do various types of filtering or secure proxying or routing of mail. Internally to do more complex filtering and policy management around mail traffic, doing things like quarantining of junk mail and providing per-user junk mail controls to the end users, and doing traffic reporting on different activity within the network or on outbound traffic. And then the core mail server, where we provide a similar level of functionality to what the Zimbra guys offer in terms of address book, a groupware and group calendaring, task list functionality, and also tight integration with Outlook. Our big advantage compared to things like Zimbra and things like Exchange is it's an appliance, so you just drop it in, whether it's for email or email security, to get these various benefits. So with that, I don't want to waste a lot of time on the marketing slides. I want to let Jeff Loke talk a little bit about our architecture and give you guys a chance to ask some questions, and then we'll have John talk about some of the deployments in the field to give you an experience of what it's like to actually use the products.
Okay, so I'm just using this chart to show you what's inside MirrorPoint, and so from the very bottom, which is the physical layer, all the way to the application layer. So if you look at this chart, basically I start from the device level. So the MirrorPoint offers different type of connections. Of course, MirrorPoint, if you have all-in-one small environment, we have the internal drive, great protected. So this box is just really plug and play. And in a bigger environment, you probably look at a SAN solution or NAS solution. So MirrorPoint can basically while the gigabit Ethernet hook up to the NetApps and so on, that basic data will stay in the NetApp. Then you can do snapshot from there on. So people use that for like DR kind of a scheme. Similar for SAN, so it's just it's a SAN network. It inherits all the concept of backup and also DR approach. And up to this level, so we have the core of the MirrorPoint system is the message space. The message space basically contains the overview database and also the flat file, which is a mail data. So the overview database itself is free index, and then it offers a very good feature called single message copy store, meaning an email going to like 10 megabyte of attachment. There's not 100 megabyte being taken. It's only 10 megabytes. but the overview database will have a 10 link to the same file. Okay, so and this store not only support one single domain but support multiple domains. Actually, so the largest number we support is 100,000 domains. So each domain have their own namespace. So in this single database, you support that many of users, and some of the largest ISP actually put in like 250,000 users in the box. Okay, and and on top of this store, which we have this protocol. Basically, is a protocol that allows you to access to the store, and the very basic protocol you can imagine is POP and IMAP, and these are fine-tuned and basically for performance. And number of so ISP user actually use our IMAP server to serve the like messages or even some of the webmail messages. They write their own webmail. They basically use our IMAP server to store the message. And then we have LDAP and SMTP. So the LDAP is LDAP v3 compliance server, so you can have all the schema extensions if you want to, or you can basically import entire user file into the MirrorPoint LDAP, and MirrorPoint will perform the auto provisioning from there on. Okay, meaning you don't have to use MirrorPoint native command or UI to manage the user database. All you have to do is just to talk to the LDAP server and manage from there. I will talk about SMTP later, and also for the web page, the web access is different from a lot of people is trying to do a HTTP to IMAP conversions. The MirrorPoint's technology is basically utilizing the HTTP direct access to the store. So when you do the MirrorPoint with the webmail access, the performance is the latency is very short and very fast. Okay, and on top of HTTP, we offer multiple version of HTTP basically. So some of them is used in Japan, like CHTML, which is the iMode. In Japan, so some people use iMode form to access mail, and so that's it. So and web is very straightforward, and XML. For XML, so is basically is a great protocol that for your data conversion, and for this one, multiple customer actually utilize XML to share the collaborative information like calendaring and address book. And one of the large ISP actually based in Hong Kong basically utilize XML to present the message to the 3G phone. Okay, and MirrorPoint ourselves actually using XML to share our data information to the Outlook client. So for our Outlook connector, so it's different from the data formattings and then so streaming to the backend. So MirrorPoint is actually doing like internal XML's a desktop XML server that's converting the data from mapping to XML and streaming to the MirrorPoint's server. And in that approach, we actually so offers not only the calendaring's support, but also address book, task, and also the free and busy lookup schedule on the native Outlook UI. Okay, so to that,
so that's a pretty important point to stress is a lot of the work we've done with that XML capability for sync. We call it sync queue, Outlook sync queue. It's to provide a way to go in the accounts where people are using Exchange and completely replace Exchange and provide basically the same level of end user functionality to the Outlook desktops.
Okay, so and the other key message I want to deliver is the differentiation to the Exchange server, the generic mail server, is that our SMTP feature itself is totally secure and also with the anti-virus, anti-spam feature built in. So the one thing I want to stress, the first thing for secure messaging is that our SMTP supports TLS connections and also verify the certificates between server. And it can extend to actually, so you can have we have a partnership with PGP, basically PGP Universal, that the message can be encrypted before it's sent out. And the key management is all stay in the PGP box, that you don't have to manage end-to-end type of connectivity. It can have a single universal box in the environment, and then we encrypt the content before it go out. Okay, And the SMTP also contains a couple of very important features, including the SMTP hook up the LDAP server by verifying the sender address. A lot of the industry actually have this SPF standard or domain key or the sender ID. It's all type of this kind standard is try to prevent it from address spoofing. And MirrorPoint is actually doing this as well. But I think at the fundamental point is that MirrorPoint, before the mails get sent out, I try to verify the sender address to the best I can. So meaning if a sender coming from an IP address, I can basically configure the SMTP server to force them to do SMTP authentication. If they can provide authenticate credential, I will rewrite the from address and return the original ID for the sender. So the mail go out, it will be the the original sender. Okay. Now from outside, the external sender will come in, so they try to make connections and spoof themselves as your domain. In that case, actually we reverse. We force them to. So you're coming from outside. If you're my employee sending from your home, please authenticate yourself. If it's really an internal employee, they will not do authentication. Address will be rewritten. But it's really a spammer trying to spoof like your domain. They will be rejected because they simply cannot provide the credential. Okay, that's sort of a series for SMTP policy. Basically utilizing the LDAP infrastructure to enforce the the SMTP sessions. Of course, there's the series for the feature including like receiving check, meaning if an email coming from outside sending to doing a directory harvesting attack, just try from A to Z, David to Lisa. So those address will be checked or be validated with the LDAP server. If that user doesn't exist, the session will be rejected. We not even bounce a message at all. Okay.
Do you have a mail hurdle too, SMTP layer?
Oh yeah, good point. So we have another feature, which anti-spam feature, is mail hurdle. The mail hurdle is another technology that we built on the SMTP sessions using the SMTP handshaking. So like the first time, the first sender, they're coming from IP address and from a